Well, joining me now to talk more about the promise of reform in India is Peter Coley. He's the Chief Investment Officer of the DMS Funds, coming to us from Pennsylvania. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, I want to get your reaction to the Japanese pledge to spend this $35 billion figure in India over the next 5 years. How big of a deal is this to India's infrastructure needs?
It's a huge deal for India's infrastructure business. For a start off, the railway system in India is decrepit. And one of the things that Abe has talked about is helping India out with its bullet trains, because Narendra Modi has this vision of connecting the large centers in India with bullet trains, of which there aren't any right now. So it's a huge deal.
Let's also talk about the Prime Minister efforts to open up India's railway, defense, and insurance sectors. You mentioned a little bit about the railway sector. What is the appetite out there for investing in these sectors, and what insurances are investors looking for?
Well, I think one of the first assurances that foreign investors are looking for is that there won't be any whiplash in regulations, which there have been in the past. And I am a great believer in Narendra Modi. I mean, he has proven himself when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat that he dislikes real bureaucracy and red tape, and has already started getting rid of it. And a classic example of that was 11 highway projects that were being sort of sidelined by the Planning Commission and things like that. And he heard about it, and he asked the Minister of Transportation to bring it to a cabinet meeting, whereas when he did that, he just okayed it right there. And so these infrastructure projects are going to be built. So I think it's a new day in India, and one that Indians deserve.
Well, you talked about Modi's dislike for bureaucracy. He's been talking about reducing the wait time for these clearances, permitting, licenses. And, you know, you mentioned it, bureaucracy has really been a barrier for companies that want to locate in India. What do you believe these reforms would mean for something like a major multinational that's considering not just investing in a sector, but putting brick and mortar on the ground, and really needs assurances from local government regulators to do so?
Right. Well, one of the first things that he has pledged that he is going to do is look at all these thousands of regulations. And in India, regulations are put in place not to assist you moving forward, but actually to prevent you from moving forward, because each government bureaucracy has its own little hierarchy in place. And he called them fiefdoms, and he's absolutely right. And in a speech that he gave on Independence Day at the Red Fort in Delhi, he used the platform to say, "Come make it in India," and that is his theme, that we want investment in India, and he's pledging to remove these barriers that have been pretty steep in the past. So I think he's going to be able to do it. He has a mandate to do it, which is wonderful.
What can you tell us? You mentioned barriers, and one of them has been taxation. There's been this controversial retrospective amendment to the income tax, and even British telecom company Vodafone took this issue to arbitration. But it has served as a warning to other investors and sort of snowballed from there. What do you think it would mean if back taxes were no longer required of corporate deals?
Well, I think it would be huge if that is lifted. The previous government actually, because they lost a case and the Supreme Court, actually tried to void the Supreme Court decision by passing legislation. And that is something that most investors are very fearful of the Indian government doing again. But the difference with Narendra Modi is that the man is market-oriented, and he believes in market solutions, not in government solutions. And he believes in doing whatever he can do, and that's a lot, and he will do it, to remove these barriers, because India needs to go into the 21st century, and I think that they have the right government in place to do it this time.
Well, there's no dispute about the need there. But I would just ask you, you know, if you put on your skeptical hat, you've been a lot bullish about the future of India. What are investors asking you to give them assurances about, and how are you allaying their fears that are based in a view of history that's not so far away in terms of all of this overregulation, changing of the rules constantly that we see?
Correct. Well, what I've been asked by investors is exactly what you've been talking about. But the thing that makes me really gung-ho this time, if I can use that term, is the fact that back in August last year, when Raghuram Rajan became the RBI chairman, I decided there and then, even though he was put in place by the previous government, that India is about to grow up, okay? And know that in order for it to be accepted in the world's economy, it has to behave like an adult, not like a child. And then I advocated getting back into India. And then when Narendra Modi was about to become, it was obvious he was going to become Prime Minister, I threw my support wholeheartedly around him. And because I feel that he feels the same way that I do, that in order for India to move ahead, they need to become adults. And I think that he is now the adult in the room, which is a great change.
Peter Kohli, thanks for coming in and speaking with us tonight. We appreciate your insight.